Alrighty.
Alrighty.
Topic.
Food in the modern world.
Food in the modern world.
Okay, food in the modern world. So, hit us off with the 5 things that we're going to focus on and try not steal
I
off
think
topic.
you're very precise.
Yeah.
I think it was 5 things that you
Just talk
said.
until you've got 5 things and then you've done the 5 things.
No, well, it's just talking about our food in the world we now live in and how it's not what it should be and where we're getting our food from and the hidden things that we maybe not all seeing and what we can do better and what we should be aware of and what changes one can look to make sure that we getting what we actually need from our food and not getting the things that we shouldn't be.
Yeah, so I think a big thing that obviously, like, I listen to a lot of American things, and we obviously follow a lot of American things that we see. So a lot of things that we see on social media are very Americanized, and I think South Africa is at a point now where we need to just see what these oaks are doing and see what they're doing wrong, and keep supporting like hunting, like guys that go hunting, buy your meat from guys that go hunting, support a butcher that's local to you that is getting a better quality meat. And just things like that, little local farms. Even so, if you're not a meat eater, then you're still supporting the local guy rather than getting this veggie that actually can stay on the shelf for 45 years. It's kind of like that. Like, because I don't think we're that bad yet, but I think things are definitely just going food chainy and just poor quality.
Well, I think the easiest one to look at is just your bread. Like, you used to buy bread as a kid. If you never ate it within like 2-3 days, it got stale and moldy. Now your bread can like stay on the shelf, and a week later, it's still like, oh, it's nice and soft. How the hell is that possible?
Yeah. So we do a bread a week, and we each get a week on, week off thing. So we do like more of like a seeded bread, myself and James, or like a sourdough. Vicky does a white bread, a standard white bread. But that Woolies bread we got, where are we now? Thursday. So we got that bread the previous Sunday. So it's a week and a half almost old. Last night I did give that with a couple of other food things to like the trolley guy or whatever, the checkers. But that bread was still fine. Because like you can't give it to. I'm like, it's not even moldy yet. There's nothing wrong with it. Like the oak's gonna get a meal out of it. But that's how bad that bread is. The sourdough doesn't even make it 3 or 4 days. And it's like toasty. And I'm like, I'm still eating on day 4. It's now I don't even need to put it in the toaster. But by day 4, you then She's like, oh, you're taking your bread without like a Tupperware. I'm like, yeah. By the time I get to work, it's actually a bit toasty because I don't have toast at the box. And then I put whatever on it. Then I've actually got sourdough toasty. But yeah, so your breads are lasting forever. Fruits are lasting forever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, why is that, and why do we need to avoid it?
No, why is that bad?
So I think they start on carbohydrates. So what are they doing?
Am I not going to just live longer like the bread?
Like the fruit.
So you eat it and you get whatever they put in.
If it's a preservative that I'm being preserved with, how is that bad?
Well, it's not what your body wants, Ben.
So I saw a very interesting study on a preservative called E45. Now, if you go and look at anything, it
There'll
has
be
preservatives.
E45 in it.
There's an E something. So the specific one that they did it on was E45. This is obviously way too healthy. But anyway,
Carry on talking. I'll tell you what.
yeah. So the preservative is E45, and they were looking at. So specifically, this is found in ice cream. Okay, and I love ice cream. Please, don't get me wrong, but I don't eat it anymore since I saw this article. So what they did was the preservative E45 contains no calories. So it's totally
Sounds magical.
it's calorie neutral. So what they did was they took a group of rats and they put them in a calorie controlled environment. So enough calories to lose weight, not starve them, but they would lean out over time, these rats. And in one group of rats' water, they put this E45, and in the other group of rats, they put no E45, just gave them water. And that group obviously leaned out because on a calorie restricted diet. And the other group of rats, there was a third group of rats who had the E45 water with as many calories as they wanted. So it was like a bowl of food always available. So the water with calorie restriction rats lost weight and had fewer health problems. The group who had E45 and too few calories still gained weight. So it like offsets the law of thermogenesis, or calories in, calories out, just with that. And the third group just couldn't stop eating. They just ate and ate and ate, like balloon rats. So not only does it make you store fat, we know it makes you store fat, calorie-free compound makes you store fat, it also makes you want to eat more. So it's not this thing of like, oh, ice cream makes you fat. Yes, it does. Ice cream is particularly fattening. But if you look at anything in the world that we live in now that is preserved to be able to be on the shelf for longer, generally those things are going to make you crave food more, and they're going to make you store the calories that you consume a lot more readily. It's interesting.
So this has got E200 in.
E200,
So when you're
fine.
looking at here, so it's sorbic acid.
So I don't know.
Preservative sorbic acid.
Sorbic
E200.
acid is different to E200 though. It's not the same
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
Won't be the same thing.
Then there's the E340 here.
So
potassium
There's,
phosphate.
there's a bunch of these E's, and I don't know much about them. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I'm not a preservative professional. This is just a study that I look at.
So one of the things so there's a client that comes to the gym, and I call him the Oros guy, not because he's a big looking Oros guy, but he drinks Oros pre-workout. I don't know if you've seen me tease him in class.
I think I've heard something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So he's drinking Oros, and I'm like, dude, I also used to enjoy drinking it. So I have a little bit of Oros, whatever it is, with some bubbly water, because it's quite thirst quenching. Like I enjoy it on a hangover, whatever it is. Back in the day, you smash that cold water, you feel good for whatever reason. No, but now that you say that, he's struggling to lose weight, and he's actually doing things quite well. But there's so many E's in that Oros, and if he's drinking that every day, it could be one of the big factors then.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
I'll go check Oros. I'll check if there's the E45 in.
It's in everything, guys. It's like you literally, unless you can go to a tree and pick it off, like there's no pizza tree. It's probably got a E preservative in. You know what I mean? Like there's no protein bar tree. If you're not getting it as a whole food source, most likely, and I'm not saying that it's like, jump off a cliff or eat these things. Like within reason, this is fine. Because you must understand these rats were consuming a fair amount of it in their water.
Yeah, I mean, like you and I are sitting here drinking a Monster Rehab, which we both
do once a
enjoy.
week when you bring it on a Thursday.
Yeah, so I bring one now. I used to have one every day, but now it is the every Thursday drink that we're doing together, whatever it is, because you and I both enjoy them. And I think it is the better option of caffeine energy drink, if you want to call it. But again, I'm not doing that every day. Maybe have a look at other things that you're doing every day, like supplements, firstly, just see what E's are in there and things like that. And I think there's a few things that, I mean, we've kind of spoken about the supplements that we're using, not having too many tainted things just in there.
Yes.
Fillers, preservatives, and all those things. So, again, just read what you're drinking.
I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to educating. If you're not eating a whole food, let's say you are putting a pharmaceutically created food into your body, just educate yourself on what that is. That at least you're aware.
And cut it down to once a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean now you can go have 200 things
Yes.
once a week, because
Yes.
then that's still too much, but try and then bring it down.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Ben's never going to have ice cream again.
Well, yeah. I did have ice cream 3 weeks ago.
I'm going to have to check on Magnums, because I am having a Magnum a week or two.
It's the Woolies triple caramel. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Is it a salted caramel, or is it
No.
just a triple caramel?
It's just a triple caramel.
Okay, Neil, take us through then a couple of other topics. So we need to understand foods, and they need to be whole foods. We obviously spoke about things can't last on the shelf too long. So if your pantry, fridge, or foods that you're eating cannot last, then you need to narrow that down and increase, obviously, stuff that, like, you should be shopping once a week, basically, for the main food groups that you're doing.
Yeah, but people shop. The problem is for most people, everything is about convenience these days. So you're buying prepackaged stuff that you not knowing 100% what is going into, and there's a lot of hidden stuff that's in there. So, whether it's sugars or seed oils and things that we don't want, that's going to cause inflammation in our body or help us not lose weight or be in the best shape that we can be. Like, you don't have control of that when you're going and buying something. So ideally, you making your own food as much as possible, because you know what you're putting in there. You can also choose. Hey, and I mean, that's the same thing when you go to a restaurant. Do you know what oil they just fried your eggs in? Like, no, you don't know what that was. Was it canola? Was it whatever else? No one knows. So if you are not having some moderate control over these things, like, yeah, once in a while, if I go and I have that, it's not going to be as bad. But if it's an everyday scenario that I'm not controlling, that means I'm just leaving it up to whatever comes into my body, and that's going to cause me problems. So, we need to know, okay, what is in our pantry and what are we actually putting in our bodies? And you have to take control of that. So, convenience is a wonderful thing because it makes life easier, but at the same time, an easy life today is going to be a hard life later. So we want to take control of that right now. And this is where people often can also misinterpret how many calories they are taking in, because how do you know what's really in that food? How do you know what ratios of carbohydrates to proteins to fats you're really getting in? So you can have an underlying amount of sugars or, things that you're not wanting now in your diet because you haven't taken the control of that. So that is the first step to going like, cool, how do I know what I'm having? Go find those food sources which work for you and which you know are good. And that's where you want it. You can always play around with different things to add flavor or add, or, variety and that type of thing. But, for the most part, like, I mean, people will know if they come to the gym somewhere between 10 and 11, Neil's going to be sitting down, probably having some mince and rice. That's what I eat on a daily for most part because that works for me. I have control of what I'm putting in. I'm not eating for the pleasure of that meal. I'm eating because I know what's in there is healthy and it's going to help me do what I want to accomplish in the rest of the day. So, not just eating for pleasure, eating for the pleasure of what that meal is doing for me. Um, and that's your responsibility. Like if you pass that responsibility out, you're not going to get the most out of your food. And that's what people have to take ownership of.
Yeah, so I think what guys have got to do, so this would be like a step-by-step thing, is first obviously try and just eat a better lifestyle. So you're eating healthier food groups, you're eating whole foods. Step number one, we've gone into detail of okay, how do I fix my lifestyle? But once you've done that and now you are going out and buying these things, just turn the label over. If you're buying something in a package, turn it over and try and get a better understanding for what is in there, or try replicate that meal then yourself rather through Whole Foods. So if you're buying like that dish that I ate now, I like it's from a good source. So I know that they use Whole Foods and they're buying this and that, and it's a bit more of an expensive, like made up meal. But Giles does a good job. So I'm happy to have that meal once a day. So that's my once a day meal. But my other meals are very, I would call them plain like you. So it's like mince and rice. So I just have patties or whatever it is, patties and carrot or patties and not even a carbohydrate sometimes. But so one meal a day I know is put together by another company, and I know that company is a good source. So I'm happy with that. So that's what guys have to do. So if you are buying these ready-made meals to make your life easy, just make sure that they are good. If they're not good, then you need to find another way to get that same meal, but also a little bit easier and then tasty as well. Like how do I now get that tasty? Because people are eating for pleasure. Like you just said now, like I'm not eating for a pleasurable meal. I'm eating because I'm fueling myself. That's also the difference that guys have to see is that if I'm doing that 60 or 70% part of the day where I'm just eating to make sure I'm getting the right amount of protein, fats, carbs, the right amount of calories, then I can maybe have that meal that's more pleasurable or a bobotie with rice or whatever it is, and that you can still make healthy.
I would agree. I think people do eat for pleasure, and I think we need to reframe the way we think about food and pleasure. I do think that it's okay to eat for pleasure, but I think once a day. I think once a day you should have something that you because it's otherwise it's a pretty sad existence. You're like, oh, no, eat this. Like you should enjoy the food you eat, but you should have maybe a meal like you had now. This meal, delicious meal, great. And then, do you want to have I don't know, a tuna salad tonight? Maybe not, but it's probably the right thing to do. That being said, the more you do it, the more you eat the mince and rice, the more you enjoy it. It's weird. Like it's like, okay, Neil can speak for himself here, but I can almost guarantee you that I'll offer him a KFC bucket meal or that, and he'll pick that on taste. Just because his body is so used to that and what it's done for him, he starts to crave that.
100% I'm picking the mince and rice.
Yeah, you pick them and try. Not just, and we're not talking about health. We're talking about this is what I feel like eating right now.
Yeah, so the same conversation that I had with this client today. So I just went for a casual chat with this client after class because we haven't spoken for a while. And then I know that she's eating a lot of nice tasting things. They've got like a mixed kind of, so she's married to someone that like from like a Portuguese side. So like food is always in their life.
Yeah.
And it's like samosas from her side of the family. So they're used to eating very kind of like super, super tasty things. Whereas like me growing up, it was more plain food. Brenda didn't eat like very like spicy things or saucy things. So us growing up, it was just plain. Anyway, so she says to me, no, but like I drink my coffee and it's just a plain Jacobs kind of like kind of not really coffee, but like and she's adding sucralose to that. So I'm like, well, rather do a black coffee, a good black coffee. So she was there by Two Terrace, so we had a Two Terrace coffee, whatever it is. And then I said, just try it with no sucralose and nothing. So she had it. She was like, it's actually not too bad. But it's because she's feeding that sucralose kind of like sweet thing the whole time into your brain. That your brain, your monkey brain's just going, give me more of that sweet thing. So we're not giving ourselves a plain palate for a period and really sticking to that plain palate and then enjoying an ice cream every now and then, whatever it is, and then you really enjoy that thing. But our palates are not used to being plain anymore because we're being fed so many different things because they want you to buy more of that thing.
But you also get people who go on a plain palate diet for, let's say, so for example, my wife developed a gluten intolerance, like a terrible gluten intolerance, and now, can't eat certain foods. Now, when you reintroduce certain foods, they're almost impalatable. Like even an ice cream is like too sweet for these people who haven't had sugar for, let's say, 2 or 3 years. You try to give them an ice cream, they actually don't enjoy it.
Like my kids aren't not able to eat sweets. They have like a tuck shop Friday, and Granny spoils them all the time. Other Granny as well. But we'll often go out, and Emily, the person that eats the most amount of sweet things, she won't finish her ice cream. Dad, I've had enough, and there's half the ice cream. It's because they're not used to the volumes of it. When we go over slushy, so we stop at Stodels on a Tuesday before swimming, they don't get a full slushy. I ask them to make a half or even sometimes a third, and then they only charge me for one or whatever it is. I don't care what it costs even, but I just want that much because
Yes.
I know that they're not going to finish it, or that's all that I want them to have. I don't want to introduce them to a Musa, thing of
Yeah, but I mean, look, even so, for me, for most people, like you're eating for pleasure. Like like how much pleasure do you want to eat for? There's like this sliding scale of pleasure. No, so I'm gonna have the burger, the chips, the milkshake, the whatever else, or like, cool. No, I for dinner often will have like ostrich patties or something like that with some avo. I might still have a little bit of tomato sauce with that. It's not huge. That's my pleasure because it makes that meal taste a bit, or a little bit of sweet chili sauce, which I whatever going to have with that. But I don't need to go have the fries and the whatever else with that. That still makes a tasty meal for me, and that's not. But it's a small percentage of my daily calorie intake that I'm sort of having, and that's also how you can sort of not cheat or game the system, but it's like deciding what you want your pleasure to be. Do you want this little bit to make things more exciting for you on a daily basis? And I'm still going to enjoy that meal. Like that's still like a good meal for me that I'm going to enjoy the taste and the pleasure of eating that thing.
so that's the exact same like example that I wanted to use is, and now I'm going to talk from like a parent's point of view, is that again the same Stodels trip. We went there. They have that little portion of the little what's it called now? I just been blank. What's those stupid thing? Slush puppy slushes. Anyway, so they have that. So then I sit down, and if there's time, I quickly get a bite to eat, and it's like a small snack. So what I normally do, so opposite the table with me was a granny with their grandchild, and this grandchild was quite overweight, like one of those ones that like someone needs to talk to the parents. So they're sitting there eating a bowl of chips each, bowl of chips, and they're dunking into the tomato sauce. Like Neil was saying a little bit, they are dunking. Every chip is like a teaspoonful of tomato sauce. So I'm doing that. Then there's me. I've ordered, so I call it the coach's meal there. So they know it. So it's a French toast with the syrup and the bacon, and that's two pieces, which then they cut up. So it's 4 pieces. Then I order 4 extra eggs and an avo on the side, a whole avo, and then I share that with the kids. They don't really eat the avo, but they have the French toast with brown bread. There's a little bit of syrup. So obviously, I don't chuck the whole thing on, but I take the fork and I put a little bit on their French toast with bacon. James goes, "Can I please, like, sneak it like it's a joke? Can I please have a little bit more syrup on the bacon?" And again, it's a little bit. So that meal is actually a fairly healthy meal compared to the kid that was opposite us. And I say the poor kid because, like, I just want to go over and help. But that's the meal that I'm introducing to my kids, which is a healthier choice at a restaurant where I've put together this meal rather than doing that. So, and again, picking the syrup to still make the meal like a French toast thing, but they've just had eggs with brown bread, bacon, and a little bit of egg. And it's like, it's a simple thing to do. It's customized. Yes, it did cost me probably double what the meal should cost, but I'm still eating a healthy option. So for people to just rather at a restaurant try and pick the better option and try and avoid and still have a little bit of tomato sauce or in this case syrup or whatever it was.
Should we talk a bit about the micronutrient content of foods?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're even getting now, you've decided you're eating clean. Okay. So,
But this is like you obviously like good food has less micronutrients, but your bad food has worse ingredients than what it had 20 years ago.
Yep.
And it goes both ways.
Yep. So, yeah. So maybe clear that up a bit.
So, for instance, like if you went to McDonald's today, you're getting a whole lot more seed oils and stuff than you would in your chips and your burger and all these like added sugars and things than what you would have if you went to McDonald's 20 years ago where it was just potato fried in beef tallow. You know what I'm saying? That's nowhere near as bad as the amount of seed oils and everything you're getting on your chips now when you go to McDonald's. Whereas, and then your healthier foods like your vegetables or your fruits and whatever else is now all being tainted with pesticides, and they're not being farmed in the same sort of way. So they're not picking up the same nutrients out of the earth. So you're not getting the same benefit out of the good foods as what you would have 20 odd years ago, plus minus.
100%. And it's not just that you're lacking the benefits, you're also picking up diseases from things like pesticides. And even the good foods that you're getting are preserved to some extent. They're not necessarily very open about how they're doing that.
Yeah, there's a waxy layer on some of the stuff. If you rinse some of your foods, the water just runs off, and it's like that's not really
Yeah.
good.
It's not how it looks on the tree.
Yeah, that's
So what do? We eat healthy, obviously. We cut back on the junk food. But now what do we do about this modern problem that we live with?
But I mean, like, if you're shopping at Woolies, like, okay, but Woolies has got to be better. But is it actually,
100% not.
like
Absolutely
is it
not.
actually, it's preserved better.
Yeah,
It
It looks better.
You know,
it looks better.
go down
Doesn't
to-
taste necessarily better though
No.
either, because sometimes the fruit doesn't have the same flavor as what it used to, or
very
what
true.
you remember it had. Yeah.
So I mean, okay, so for meats, I'm gonna start like we had a chat now. We're gonna try get a whole kudu now when my buddy goes hunting. So
Right.
try support.
Let's talk about hunting, okay? Because we have a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, hunting's so bad. It's animal cruelty. Now, I was one of those people. I was very anti-hunting. I
don't
was
like
like,
animals dying, and I don't think any of us do.
for me, guys, like fishing, I'm like this poor fish. Like,
Put it back.
yeah,
Put it
no,
back.
don't put it back because now you've torn a hole in its face and now you must dump it. Like,
So you,
I'm
like my
like-
wife, Vicky's like, what about the hook in the mouth?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't even feel it.
let me put
Like,
a hook through your mouth and see if you feel it. Anyway, let's say, so now a buddy of mine's a hunter and he's a good guy. This is a stand-up. He's not like you. He's a good.
Who's this guy?
he
Give me a name.
he says to me, have you seen how your steak is made? And he wasn't talking about how they kill the animal, saying this animal goes into a pen with dust and they don't get to experience life. If you were to study the serotonin levels of the brain of these animals, and they have these studies, you'll see that they're depressed.
So
All of
farm
these
cows
animals,
is
they
depressed.
feel depression. They don't feel joy. They don't live a life. They're in this pen. They're fed in a feedlot. Even the grass-fed, it's not what you think it is. They're not these grazing on the pastures. There's money to be made off beef farming. They live a terrible life for a long time. They get fed the things that they don't want. Their stomachs are bloated. They're feeling uncomfortable. They get acid reflux. They have a miserable life for, let's say, I don't know, let's call it a year. If you want to, even if we're talking about like these cows that they like speed race. Whereas my animal has had a happy life. It had a loving mother. It experienced the world. It grazed off the land. It contributed to the ecosystem. It had 1 to 5 seconds worth of suffering when I shot it, and it died. It had a fantastic life. It died as quickly as your animal died. Which is more cruel to support? Then I was like, geez, like I don't have a counter argument to this. Like actually, hunting is by far the more animal friendly thing to do, by far. Provided that you're eating the animal and not just like mounting it on the wall. Like I get that, but like we're talking about hunting for food. By far, these animals live healthy lives. They're happy. They have a nurturing community. Like if
Yeah,
you're a
but-
pro animal, hunting has got to be the way.
It's also the same as like you take a kid and you make him farm some vegetables in your back garden. They learn a new respect for that food. Now, if you're sitting and you're only buying meat ever off a shelf, like, yo, you don't know what's going on in the background. But if you have to go out and kill an animal, whatever, your appreciation for that food and what you respect and what you're getting from it becomes a whole lot more, because now you're in touch with the whole ecosystem of how you're getting fed and how the world works. So it's like, it almost should be a rite of passage that everyone needs to go kill something for themselves at some point to bring it back and eat that, to understand this is how the system works.
Because you often see, like I see this with my nephews a lot, there'll be like a piece of steak that's not perfectly cooked. They'll just leave it. They're like, no, I don't want that. And kids are fussy. Like it's hard to force them. But if they had to understand how it was killed, and like they would, like you say, appreciate it so much more. And I think adults are the same. And food wastage would go down significantly.
So I think that's maybe why I think with my father taking us fishing, so we obviously fish a lot growing up. And I just remember this one thing being in Zim, we did a lot of bass fishing, but we went out and we just caught bottlenose and we caught some just normal bream. And I think we brought back, I think the number was 33. So we then filleted 33 fish that night and he showed us, this is how you do it. You take the guts out, you then take the crab out of the stomach. And it's quite a fun thing that you learn as a kid or that we did as a kid. But then the appreciation then when we do go fishing, and you do catch a fish and it does die in the live well, or it does die because the lure killed it because it's deeper down, whatever the reason is, you fillet that fish, you eat it, and there's a much bigger appreciation that when we went fishing then at some point as we got older, we actually said, Dad, let's just put a few more back this time. So then it's like, okay, we only took 2 this time, we put the rest back or whatever it is. And then even sometimes we just didn't keep any of them. So we go out, put everything back, and then because you don't need it, we've got supper, whatever it is. So you just learn a bigger appreciation. I think it doesn't have to be hunting. So fishing is a form of hunting, you can say. Spear fishing is obviously because then you're shooting the animal, but fishing, going out, catching a bass, putting it back, it's still enjoyable because you're still doing a hunting thing, but then you're putting it back kind of thing. But you learn a lot as a kid by doing it, and kids aren't doing that these days.
Okay, so aside from the animal, why is it good to eat food that's hunted?
Because it's not eating any bad foods.
Yeah.
So then you obviously eating just a cleaner animal.
It's a clean animal for sure. And the micronutrient content of the food goes up. So if you look at the vitamins and minerals contained within a steak of something that was wild versus something that was not wild, a domestically raised animal, it's totally different. The amounts of all of your vitamins are higher, all your minerals are higher. And then again, basically everything is processed. Like steak is just processed salad. You know what I mean? Like they just eat grass and whatever. So the health of the liver of that animal matters. The way that they're processing it and the way that they're contributing to their muscle bulk matters. So you're just getting a lot less crap and you're getting a lot more of the things you do need for a healthy lifestyle.
So I think then with meats, just try to support a hunter that you know. I mean, everyone knows someone that's going hunting, so support them, buy a buck off them, and then just freeze it. Like all
100%.
of them, there's a couple of good guys here. The one guy's here in Paul. He breaks stuff down very nicely, puts different flavors in. You can have like a bobotie flavor sausage and things like that. So there's really nice things that you can do to it. And again, it's not going to really beat the price of the woolly stuff, but you know what you're eating and you know what you're getting.
So I actually, the guy who I buy from is cheaper per kilo of meat.
Yeah, I can imagine
It's
it would be.
significantly cheaper. And what's nice about the hunting is you can, or if you know a good butcher who's willing to do something for you, you can get your organ meats minced. So let's say I would like kudu mince, then I would like 20% of that to be liver, heart, and kidney. Then you literally don't taste it. It's 80% meat, 20% organ meats. You cook it up. It's delicious. If you do that regularly, you're getting enough organ meats and different types of organ meats in your diet that you wouldn't normally have gotten.
Yeah, so I think what I'm trying to hit here, which we can try to do, is get guys to support a local like hunter or a local butcher, or speak to your butcher about what he's doing to his meats and then obviously he can just not
Yes.
tell you what he doesn't
Yeah.
want to tell you, but try and get someone that you're supporting locally like that. But then the same thing for fats now. So obviously now, like a big caution is now fats. So like people obviously, which I think one of the bigger topics is people still think that fats make you fat, but now it's actually the health of the fats that you're actually consuming and what that's doing for you, and you do want to get lots of fats in, you know.
Yeah, and even cholesterol, it's still vitally important as a man, especially to get cholesterol in terms of your hormone levels and everything else. And guys are like, well, we need to avoid these animal fats and blah, 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 blah. Like, you still need a part of that as part of your diet. Yes, obviously, some people struggle from a cholesterol point of view, like we know you have, but there can be other factors playing that part. And by maybe not having something, you also can be affecting something else. Um, but yeah, definitely, like that was something that I had to change as I sort of progressed. Like you grew up in this thing, where especially back in the 90s and whatever, where everything was like Heart Foundation approved, blah, 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 blah. And, realizing that, hey, actually fats is something I need. And, even now, like when I've reduced my activity and intensive activity levels, I've brought my carbohydrates down, but bumped my fats right back up again because that becomes a better sustainable resource of energy and things like that. And obviously just other functions within the body and the brain, and people need to be aware of that.
So take us through just some of the bad oils that have come to light that guys have been using for a bit. Like one of them was canola oil that I think about a year or two ago it was like, don't use these oils, but use canola oil. But now it's showing that that's also bad oil. So I think take us through just a couple of oils. If you pick up something, what are you looking for?
Well, yeah, if I'm looking at oils, I want to avoid anything that's mostly from that seed sort of family or that plant sort of based family. Like, so for myself personally, I only really use avocado and coconut oil. Those are the ones that I sort of stick to for the most part. And I don't use a lot of olive oil, but obviously a good olive oil is also decent. But
Yeah, so olive oil changes the taste of like a lot of food. I don't use olive oil to really cook with. just because it gives things a bit of a weird taste, but that's just personal.
It's also under high temp. Olive oils is
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
best thing
Yes.
to use.
Not all olive oils are created equal either.
Yeah.
There's good and bad olive oil. Anyway, continue.
But no, yeah. So that's just where I am in terms of what I look at from healthy oils and fat perspective, in terms of that type of thing. And yeah, you could. The problem is in today you can lift up most things. So like recently, one of the big things that like I've changed my nut butters to something a lot more like true, because like if you can go into most even like sugar-free, salt-free sort of peanut butters, and you go look on the back there, and you're going to see palm fruit, canola oil, all these things thrown into it. So what you might think is a healthy product, if you're not aware and taking notes of it, can turn into something that actually might be causing inflammation or harm in the body.
I think that's a big one. So I think I saw we were doing a lot of peanut butters, and then we've been using one or two, and then we both switched to a brand now that's just, it even says one ingredient on the side, like it advertises one ingredient. I was like, that's pretty cool, because of all the fillers. So those are the fats, and then just cooking with fats. What do you cook with? You said
Well, mostly coconut
the
or avocado, because they have a higher frying temp that doesn't sort of denature it.
and butter. Butter, cooking with butter.
So yeah, so what Neil's alluding to is the chemical structure of fats or oil specifically changes under the different temperature brackets. So it's what we call cis fats, which if you look at the chemical bond, it'll have a chemical bond that goes this way, chemical bond that goes, and so the one in the middle is the stable one. And then there's two arms on the side. Cis means the same. So these arms on the same side. Then you go to trans fat, which means one arm is on this side, then we've got our structure, then we've got one arm on the other side. That's a trans fat. So by heating and cooling or overheating oils, you can change a cis to a trans. This is not a good time to be talking about cis and trans, but let's stick to fats.
We won't woke this
We
podcast.
won't- yeah, let's not woke
Let's not
anything.
woke
Let's not
this.
woke the
It's
dragon.
not work oils.
So that's what Neil's alluding to. So when you are cooking something, you have to understand that certain things cook, you need higher temperatures than others. For example, if you want to make a delicious steak, that pan's got to be searing hot, all right? Or it doesn't have to be, but it is nicer that way. Or if you're air frying something, you put it in the air fryer at 200 degrees Celsius. You have to be aware of which oils will change to unhealthy oils at higher temperatures and which ones do so at lower temperatures. So, for example, avocado oil is a brilliant thing to cook with because you know it's very difficult to get to a heat point that's going to change the structure of the fat. So that's what he's alluding to. Butter isn't terrible. Really, I can't understand why butter got such a bad reputation. It's super healthy for you anyway. And even at higher temperatures, it's not terrible.
It does burn, so your butter ends up burning. So you just got to watch what you're going with it, or don't let it sit for too long. But if you got the butter in and you put, or even have your steak in and then put the butter in, it'll even then cook quite well. So just
Tallow is the way to go if you want to
Yeah,
get
I do.
serious
I
about
do
this.
also use a little bit of butter, especially for eggs, because it just gives it
Delicious.
a nice little bit of
Yeah,
flavor.
and super healthy.
Yeah, and
Super healthy.
yeah,
But then can you just cook with ghee then rather?
Ghee's great.
Yeah.
Ghee's great.
So ghee's a better option as well, just to cook with.
While we're here, can we just like annihilate the margarine is healthier than butter argument? Okay, margarine is terrible for you. I don't understand where this came from. Guys, butter is fine. 100% pure butter is fine. Margarine is not fine. Half and half is not fine. Okay, butter, just butter.
Yeah, so I'm trying to look for, so butter is hard to spread on the kids' bread or whatever they're trying to,
just
on their
leave
little
it out.
crackers. So
Literally.
all I say to Vix is just leave it out overnight, like the ants are then killing it. So there's all these other
You
variants.
get a
but
butter
yeah.
container, guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
get a cheese knife, like those things where you like pull
Yeah.
to slice your butter, and then that cools very quickly. So you put that on the bread, like 30 seconds later, it's at room temperature. If you're leaving the block there, it takes long.
So just grate your butter. Yeah.
But be a little bit more intelligent, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like last night, I was at the checkout checkers getting a couple of things, and the guy next to me, bit of a Jim Boyke, and then I just check. It's burger patties. I'm like, dude, you've got this. Then it's white bun falling off the bus. Then it's like a Coke or something like that. And then behind it is this proper stalk margarine stuck. And I just wanted to grab this guy, but like, listen, but like you could have just tweeted this
Testosterone's
slightly.
only going to take you so
Like,
far, my
yeah.
friend.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
he's
so-
bulking.
Yeah,
He's
so it's like-
fat. He's archery.
It's hard. Yeah, it's artery bulking.
but in my brain, it is like burgers. Good job. Like Big Boyke, how's it?
And can we also
Burgers and then just downhill.
quickly just touch on what Neil was talking about cholesterol? Okay, now all of your sex hormones are formed off the back of cholesterol. So if you should actually do this nice exercise to do, Google the chemical structure, Google molecular structure of cholesterol, and then Google molecular structure of testosterone, and they are identical except for one side chain. It's very interesting. So we know testosterone is made from cholesterol. When we eat cholesterol, let's say you eat something like prawns. Prawns are high in cholesterol. You don't absorb cholesterol very well. Cholesterol actually just passes through. Cholesterol is actually synthesized in the body, so you make it. You make it from saturated fats, primarily animal fats. So if you've got like a steak with some fat on it, that's very good for hormone health. Very good for hormone health. Not seed oils can't. You can't form your sex hormone. So you'll eat that saturated fat. It's very well absorbed. It goes to the liver. The liver creates a beautiful cholesterol molecule from that. And from there, your body, through various processes in the testicles, can create testosterone. So cholesterol is not the enemy that it's made out to be. Specifically in foods, people are like, oh, high cholesterol food. You pretty much don't absorb any of it.
And eggs. So guys are like, oh, I can't have too many eggs. I've got a hereditary high cholesterol.
Well, so it's actually fine if they don't eat eggs because they'll die sooner and we'll be rid of them sooner. So it's fine. Don't.
Cholesterol's involved in the brain and neuron and like this
myelin sheaths. Yeah, cholesterol and lots of different types of fatty acid chains are combined to line your neurons. So neurons are predominantly made of fat. The brain is 60% fat. So get that. So if you're not consuming fats, you're not really supporting neuron health either. So so basically how it works is you've got an electrical cord that goes somewhere. So a neuron will go from my brain to my spinal cord, and then spinal cord, let's say, to my arm. So I've got this cord, it's a nerve that goes the whole way here. I have to send a signal. With anything, that signal is lost if it's not insulated. So like with this cable here going to the aircon, you have to insulate the cable so that the electrical signal travels quickly. The nerves work exactly the same way, and it insulates it with fat. So you have decreased nerve function when you don't have enough fats. Same thing in the brain. So the brain is just electrical signals being sent via these nicely lined cords. If you don't have good lining, the thought processes are shit. So if you're not eating enough fats, you have foggy thoughts, decreased sexual health, poor muscular function.
Just a little brain fart there. So just talking about fats then. So a new thing that I learned about last year, the year before, when I started doing a bit of cold therapy, was brown fat. So brown fat that is covering just all your central nervous system, things like that. So that's obviously hard to increase, but through cold therapy, you can get an increase of brown fats. There's no other way to increase your brown fats, eh?
Not that we're aware of, no. The one way you can increase HDL, or good cholesterol, which is also a misnomer, LDL is not necessarily bad, but we'll hedge that for another talk, is through exercise. So exercise will increase the amount of good cholesterol, and cold therapy will increase the amount of brown fat, good fats around your organs.
And isn't the big difference between the two sort of cholesterol or fats is that it's basically the one is more liquid in the body and the other one is more sort of solid,
fatty.
Yeah, and therefore having those good cholesterols with the bad is almost like helps pass through the body better in a sense. Yeah.
Should we move on to carbohydrates? Anything else on oils? Carbs is hard.
Well, what about fruits and veg? Like, that's where are you getting it from? Is it what do you think it is, and how do we ensure that we're getting?
Yeah, so for carbs, I think sticking to the healthier option. So obviously we know bad carbs, but let's try to stick to the healthier option. So I've been adding a lot of berries into my diet just with the bulbar inflammation issues that I've had and all this. So berries are massive. But now it's like, where do you get it from? Because it's seasonal, things like that. So sadly, I just buy it from Woolies or Checkers, wherever it's just fresh on the shelf. And I've been trying to study now what is a seasonal fruit because I didn't know these things. And then I try to stick to that seasonal fruit so that I know that I'm not getting something that's super preserved. Because if you're getting strawberries now, you're doing something wrong, or nachos or something like that. Then like you're eating a fruit that's potentially shipped in from somewhere else, which is why it's more expensive, or it's got a massive preservative on or waxy coating. So what are you doing for your fruit?
Well, I'm terrible at my fruit because I just buy Woolies because that's the most convenient.
Me too.
I know that needs to be better, but like going to an organic farmer's market and whatever else is not always necessary on your doorstep. And the shelf life on some of those things obviously don't last as long. And to do that on a daily, regular basis becomes a bit more challenging. So, my concern more with food is like I eat a large quantity of foods and nutritious stuff. So I know I'm getting in decent amount of nutrients through everything that I mean. Am I getting the best? Maybe no. my biggest concern when it comes to fruits and vegetables at this point is the pesticides and the preservatives and stuff that might be not only on the fruit but absorbed through where the fruit is growing and that type of thing. Um, so that's actually what my biggest concern is, and where I know like I have to look at making a change somewhere to make it, a healthy option in my life and get the most out of what I am eating.
Yeah, I think that's for me. So like I can easily sort out the meats because that's the hunting friend and that's easy. The fats are fats. Fats are fats. I don't think you can really go wrong there because I mean, unless you're getting it from a certain source and it's got a certain brand on it, you know that it's pretty okay. But yeah, so the fruits and veggie realm is quite tough. I haven't looked into this, but I mean, try get to a farmer. But like you say, by the time you got to the farm, got it back home, you're gonna have to eat it that day or the very next day. What else can you do for your fruit side or your veggie side?
I think you're looking at, like, obviously you're looking at preservative free fruit or as few preservatives and pesticides as possible. Wash your fruit, unless it's like a banana, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're eating the skin, wash it. If you're eating
But
like
you just
like a lot
skin
of
on your
people,
banana? Dude, I've got to try find this clip. It got like a billion views, but there is this Aborigine, no teeth, like gangster hair, like yours. If you take your fringe and you fold it over, so she's got no teeth, and she's just going, "I like my banana," but she's just eating it through the skin, bro. And I don't know how it got so many views. Sorry, it just farted into my brain. I'll try find it. I'll try to see if Tish can cut that in here.
I would love that.
Okay,
So
going
yeah,
back
so
to
so
your
we're looking
banana
at.
eating.
I think that we are stuck in a situation in the world where fruit is genetically modified. I don't think anyone can argue that an apple was never this big and that sweet. It just isn't. Genetically modified is at the end of the world. I don't think so. I really don't give a damn if something's genetically modified or not, as long as the preservatives are not terrible. If you're looking at getting sufficient quality animal meat, I'm going to just offend all the vegans. I don't mean this to be offensive, but if you're getting enough quality meat in your life, your macronutrient profile is actually sorted. So for me, I use fruits as a macronutrient. I use it to fuel workouts, or if I need a carbohydrate earlier in the morning, then that's what I'm using as I know a clean source of carbohydrates. I'm not using it to try and get vitamins and minerals because I understand we've lost a lot of that profile over the years and how we're farming and the soils that we're using and all the processes it goes through. I get that. This is very tricky for vegans, I think, to get quality micronutrients. Very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is, I think, something that needs more attention.
Yeah, there's a thing called the foodrevolutionnetwork.org, and I followed a little bit of stuff because there was a nice clip of this guy showing that the topsoil is just dead. So I think America's got like, I think this is another, I think it's 7 years left of proper topsoil before they need to start like making a serious dent on putting char or charcoal back on them,
Yeah,
fixing
so
the earth or whatever. It is.
So I've got a couple of farming buddies, and they have to put lime into the soil as they farm. So when you put lime, firstly, it's very expensive to do this, to put lime back into your soil, and you won't get payoff for 2 generations. So this guy's son won't benefit from it, but that guy's son might, and that guy's son then will. So it's like 50 years in advance that you have to be thinking about your soil, which is obviously not how we, especially in the modern world, think about things. We're kind of like, how do I maximize this before I die?
Yeah, it's
Or
this
maybe
crop
for my
yield,
son.
so it's this crop yield and maybe the next 2 or 3, but not for my third generation that's following me. And
It's-
that's where a lot of the foods, like you're saying now, a lot of the farmed
So you're probably
vegan
missing
options.
100 crop yields.
Yeah.
It's way in advance.
And then that land's going to sit until it's fixed again, you know, and then they're going to have to spend money on it. So, yeah, so I mean, and I had this discussion with that client yesterday, was that she eats more of a vegan vegetarian diet, and that's fine because of the like animal cruelty things, but you can do better if you eat a hunted meat.
You're also exposing yourself to potentially more pesticides and chemicals and preservatives than by eating a good quality, venison or wild game or whatever the case is.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's the end argument that I had with her, is that she is very good at what she does in terms of eating vegan or vegetarian, but not everybody can do that. The lazy person that's going to switch from a carnivore diet to vegan because of this or that, they're going to get lazy. They're going to buy the nearest, closest stuff, the stuff that lasts the longest on the shelf, the package this, the package that, the ready-made this, and it's not a good source of food.
The problem with veganism in general is that, like you say, most people don't do it correctly. Generally, you increase your intake of preservative foods. Processed food intake increases in veganism. We see this, like, this is not me trying to be nasty. This is just an observed thing. Now we go to the vegan donut shop, or we get this vegan patty, for example, from Woolies, which looks very healthy. It's all processed foods. There's very little vegans who are eating whole foods.
Yeah, so I think if you want to switch to vegan for whatever reasons and things that you believe in, you've got to eat whole foods and you've got to really work hard on making sure that's good. And this lady does do that. So I'm like, yes, you're amazing, but I'm never going to try and tell you to get this person to do it because that person is going to fall off the bus.
For sure.
And that's the issue. Rather than switch them to something that they know, which and is easier, a meat kind of carnivore diet. So I eat meats and fruits basically. And I'm satisfied with that. There's no ways I'm lazy. I'm a lazy eater. I'm going to go for the quickest and easiest thing. And that's not going to be a vegan option because I need to spend 20 minutes doing this, 20 minutes cutting that, picking this, checking that. And it's too much effort. And I'm not going to stick to it. So I'm going to fall off the bus.
Yeah, I mean, even for myself, like I didn't spend a lot of, like I cook my meats and I cook a little bit of rice and a little bit of sweet potato. And that's what I use to sort of fuel myself. Outside of that, it's fruits, banana, some grapes or an apple or peach or whatever the case is. And like now at the moment, I'm not eating a lot of vegetables because you got to cook it in the oven, put something on it, do whatever else. So like my snacks are going to be a whole carrot just pulling out, or here's a cucumber, chop off a piece, eat that. Some cherry tomatoes, just wash them off, eat them a whole. And, that's how I choose to have that. I might have some pickled stuff as well, like gherkin or whatever the case is. But that's how I choose to eat. It works for me because it's easier, it's convenient. There's different taste and profiles that I can sort of get into. I don't have to cook much. In the summer, it's beautiful. It's not hot. I mean, it probably will change a little bit when I get to winter. But for me, that's how I find the convenience and still able to eat a healthy food and enjoy my meals.
Anything else you want to add, bro?
I don't think so.
I think we covered protein, fats, and carbs.
Yeah.
Watching out for stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we can talk about breakfast, but I think we'll do a whole segment on, the lies of breakfast.
Yeah, breakfast is your best meal.
Well,
Not when you eat it, just eggs and bacon. Eggs, bacon, and butter.
it's also one of the most important meals to get your day going in the right fashion.
Okay, let's maybe do this because this was the conversation I had in class last night. What is the one thing that you could eat for the rest of your life? It has to be one thing.
Does it have to be healthy, or is it like something I could just eat forever?
No. So if you were stuck somewhere, something, and they're like, you can have this one thing. It has to be a
Am
single
I going to stay in shape if I eat it?
It doesn't matter. What is the
So
one
let's
thing
let's say I pick donuts. I'm not going to pick donuts, but would I get fat if I were to do this? You know what I mean? Or is it like, am I choosing this based on health, or am I choosing this based on what I could physically eat for the rest?
Health. You kind of have to.
Okay, let's do both. So let's be serious about it. Let's choose one food.
Yeah.
And then let's do but I want this first.
Okay. Optimal health, steak, easy.
Just a piece of steak.
Just
any
steak.
choice, like venison or rump or
I would go
sirloin
beef.
or
Beef ribeye.
Ribeye. Okay. What's yours? Don't say mince. Please
No,
don't
I
say
won't
mince.
say mince. Like mince for me is a convenient food that you can get.
This guy
you
is
can go
fucking
anywhere.
mad. I'm sorry.
I know why Ben is going with beef. Like, but I mean, it's I don't know if I can choose one. You're putting me on the spot, and I can't do it. It's gonna be a protein source of some kind. Like, I know what Garth's gonna say. He's gonna go chickens because chickens can lay eggs, and you can have meat, and you can have chickens, eggs, and whatever. So that's also
That
a good
doesn't count.
argument.
That really
You
doesn't
can-
count.
For Ben, you can milk his cow.
Then milk my steak.
I'll choose ostrich.
You're gonna go ostrich.
Yeah, that's an
the
egg
big
now.
chicken. You can get the big
One
egg. out of
big
the
egg.
That's actually a genius option.
Or do you go? Or do you go like crocodile? 'Cause they also lay eggs.
That's a good option, actually. Now you got me thinking. Now I'm like,
Or are you gonna go salmon so you can have the roe as well?
yo. This guy's expanding my world of
Okay,
options.
but you can't
right
pick the offspring. You have to just have one
now.
thing.
Okay, so
that
it's the one
exists.
option. Okay, so if you're choosing the meat, it's not because it can lay an egg. Okay, so what are you
No.
going with? What's your final option there?
It's a protein source. Like I don't really care which one it is, whether it's an ostrich, a kudu, or a cow. Like, give me one of those.
I disagree 100% because I think if you've got too lean a protein, it makes a difference. You're going to
Yeah,
suffer terribly.
okay, true.
With your
Yes, I
health.
never thought about it from that way, but
Or just for the taste. Listen, you got to eat this thing for the rest
We're
of your
not
life.
doing taste, Garth. We're doing health. We literally just
Okay,
discussed
okay.
this.
Okay. The healthy one for me then would definitely also be beef. So I definitely go for beef. I was thinking fish, but I'd still then just lean back onto the beef. Fish is a good option, I think, just because I like eating raw fish. And I do know of the omega fatty acids that you'll get out of that, but you will still get good omegas out of your beef. So a beef, I won't go ribeye because that shit's going to get fucking sinewy fast.
why do you have to choose a cut though? Like, what are you doing with the rest of the cow if that's all you got
Okay.
around?
Okay, beef. Beef it is as
It's
well.
just copying me.
Yeah.
No, Neil's
No.
going to copy me as well. That's why I went first.
Okay, so we're all satisfied with
Bison.
beef.
So actually,
Bison.
there's a lot of
I'm going to
studies-
Rich Frozen and I'm having bison.
But then
getting too
chicken,
lean.
is chicken not a better option just because you can then get
How can
No,
a
I
bison be too
suppose-
lean?
So
They've got
your-
to survive
your-
winter.
If you look at the vitamin content of beef, it's complete. Get every single vitamin you need. Chicken is not the same.
all right, let's go for says end off on your thing that you would then just eat for the rest of your life.
Rusks.
Rusks.
Yes, I love rusks. Jeez, like I could eat rusks continually
Yo.
for the rest of my life. You all
like
love a
just
rusk.
a plain rusk.
Guys,
Guys, there a certain rusk.
I mean,
that
dipped
does it for you?
rusks. No, I mean, bro, you could bring me a box of
Ice cream
Omar
on
rusks, and I'd be like, oh my goodness,
You
best
dip
thing
it in
ever.
your tea or
Guys,
coffee.
like there's times where I get like a bit overboard, and then I'll eat so many rusks, like the inside of my mouth is bleeding, like the roof of my mouth is like. Yo, I love rusks.
I get that from Whispers because I suck the whisper. If I'm in a movie, I'll leave a movie, lips chapped from the popcorn, palate destroyed.
I've had that from sour sweets though, as well.
Yes,
You're a sweet
yes.
guy, so what would you have? What's this one thing if you could live off something?
If I
that
could
even
live
it's-
off
yeah,
it.
even if it's unhealthy.
Like my weakness is just fresh bread, like butter and fresh bread,
Nice. That is a bomb.
like
Yeah.
you know. And then you obviously have offerings of like just putting some cheese on there or jam
Yeah.
or
Ooh.
whatever else. Like
So we went to
peanut
Upper
butter.
Union. So this is it. Upper Union. They
Crush
had
some
a
rusks.
they had a Jewish bread.
It's called
It's a-
challah.
It's a mix between a croissant and something
Yeah.
else.
Challah. It's like a sweetish kind of bread.
Dude.
Yeah.
Then they had
Bonkers.
3 butter choices. I can't remember them exactly, but there was like a this butter, that butter, and then like a cream thing. Best thing ever. So that for me, just like that warm piece of
You got a Jewish vibe.
bread. I don't think I'm close to Jewish. This Jewish
More
bread
Greek,
with
isn't
the
it?
butter. No, it was ridiculous, yeah. All right, guys.
Cool.
That ended up being a long one.
Yeah.
Let's try.
15 minutes. It's a good one though. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.